Hello everyone and welcome back to another video of VChess. It's been a while since I posted a long form video and today we're going to be refuting the Alien Gambit as we know from Mr. Alien himself. So let's get straight into it. After e4, c6 we go into the Caracan defense. Black's idea is to push d5, get a stake in the center. White takes the full center and after d5, knight c3 defends this pawn. Knight d2 is also a move defending e4. But either way, we'll transpose it by taking on e4. This would breach the same position. And after the move knight to f6, the vast majority of times, white plays knight takes f6. And after e takes f6, we play bishop d6, castle, and get quite quick initiative with quite a safe king due to the double pawns. But now there's this move knight g5, knight g5. And after h6, looks like white just has to move back, lose the tempo. White has the move knight takes f7. After king takes f7, let's take a moment here and pause. So, white sacrificed a full knight here. Now, it's not safe to say yet that black is winning if he doesn't know what to do, because as you can see, I've highlighted the weak light squares in this position. If white can somehow make the tactics work for him, and get control of these light squares and attack black's king, black can easily lose this game. For example, after the move knight to f3, bishop g4 is immediately losing d2, knight to e5. After king e8, you just go knight takes g4. As you can see, the weak light squares, white's now up a pawn, white can bring the bishop to c4, white can castle quickly, and this is just absolutely winning in this position. And white also has the bishop pair, just to make it even worse. So, after the move knight to f3, as we can see, white's trying to play something like bishop c4, knight to e5, continue to attack his king. But we're not going to really think about that because after a move like knight d7, there's always a move like bishop d3. And this isn't so clear because the queen can always come to e2, and there's always pressure on the e6 pawn. So let's play the move c5, immediately attacking d4. Now the most common move here is knight to e5 check, according to the Lichess database. Now if you play the move king e8 here, king e8 is actually losing because of the move bishop d3. And as you can see, like I said, the weak light squares are really, really important here. So you have to play the move king g8 here. And even though this doesn't look so safe and it keeps the rook kind of trapped, black's king is much safer here and it just avoids all the trouble. In fact, this is the only move which black can play to stay in a winning position or a better position. So if we quickly go back and we look at the move bishop c4 here, and e6, knight to e5 check and king g8. Now let's go back to knight to e5 check, king g8, and bishop c4. This is the most common move by far. As you can see, this transposes to the same position. If you don't know what transpose means it goes back through different move orders, we reach the exact same position. This happens a lot with openings, middle games, and also endings, so it's quite important to understand the idea of transpositions and apply them accordingly. So here, the most common move is c3, but I think castle is what seems to be the most tricky move here. And if the move like cd4 is played here, actually this I've fallen for this trap a couple of times. So white has the move rook e1, and it doesn't look like much is happening. After knight c6, if white takes on c6 and after b takes c6, you can just bring the bishop to d6, put the king, even bring the king back to f7, rook e8, king g8. You can put the king back to h8, push e5 at some point, and this is just completely fine. After this move, knight g6, it looks like... Oh, my knight's disappeared. No, mine is back. So it looks like white's trying to just grab one of these pieces. In reality, after a move like bishop d6, which is something I've played before, there's this brilliant move of rook takes e6, which is absolutely boggling when you see it at first. So if black just plays a random move, there's this move. A rook e8, king h7, and queen d3. Just staring out. And if you play some random move like queen takes e8, knight to f8 is a double checkmate. Absolutely brutal. Now, instead of e6, for example, and if you do take on e6, takes king h7, queen d3, the same pattern, absolutely brutalizing. This king cannot do anything. Despite being up a full rook, black has nothing to do here. And so this is something you really want to avoid. So instead, I propose the move queen takes d4. which is really, really good, I think. And it basically ends White's shenanigans. So if White goes Queen takes d4, c takes d4, you'll just bring the knight to c6 at some point. When this knight moves, you can put the bishop on d7. For example, when the knight goes to g6. And there's also a concept which I'll be covering later on in the game. But if White ever does take on h8, you can always just go king takes h8. And something about this position is that, let's just quickly look through this actually. Knight takes h8, king takes h8. What you need to understand is, even though the material seems to be equal, these two knights are much better than this horrible rook, especially in this endgame. As you'll see, we can play moves like e5, bishop d6, bishop to f5, mobilize the rook, and these two pass pawns can be really, really menacing for White. And these pieces are just so well coordinated, the two knights, the two bishops, an absolutely beautiful position. So let's look at the move Queen e2 instead. So Queen e2 has the idea of just bringing the rook to d1 if a random move is played. In fact, if Queen e4 is played, you can literally just take knight takes e4 and rook d8, and the threat's knight g6. The threat's knight g6, getting to f8. The thing is, you can't even bring the king to f7 to its defense. So this is just completely lost. So you have to act quickly, and the move here is Queen e4. So the idea of Queen e4 is that if the queen moves away, you just take on e5. Now, if White takes on e4, this is the main line. Let's just quickly look at Queen e1 as well. So Queen e1, you just take anyway, and after Rook takes e1, you just play a move like Knight c6, continue your development, and like I've said, even if White does go Knight g6 and take on h8, these two knights will always outperform this bad Rook. So let's look at the main line. Queen takes e4, and after Knight takes e4, let's look at Knight g6, so like I've said. So you can play Knight c6 here, and Knight c6 is completely fine. After Knight takes h8, King takes h8, we reach a similar position. But there is this nice move, in between move almost, of Knight d6, which attacks his bishop. After bishop b3, this is losing, this is c4, and after bishop a4, b5. You trap this, you trap the bishop, and it just cannot move anywhere. He'll be up 2 pieces, in fact. So he'll just be completely winning. So we'll look at bishop d3 instead, which is a more natural move. And after bishop d3, we can just play the move knight c6. There's no more pressure on e6, as you can see. So you can even push e5 in the future, bring the knight to b4. In fact, bringing the knight to b4 to win the bishop, to take out the bishop pair is really important as well. So White's best move is probably c3, but it's never been seen in practice. Rook e1 is the most common move. After this, we can just go knight b4, trying to grab off this bishop pair. After knight takes h8, we take on d3, c takes d3, and king takes h8. And this may not look like it's completely winning for black at first glance, if you're not so familiar with these positions. But you can see that White's rook is so passive, firstly. These, the knight and bishop are going to coordinate so well compared to these two rooks, which barely have any open files. This rook will come to d8, pressuring the weak d3 pawn. And black always has the 3-on-2 majority once they do win this d3 pawn, which is basically inevitable in this position. So in the main line, as you can see, White's just getting completely lost. Let's quickly look at ideas other than knight to e5 and bishop c4 check. So there are some other trickier alternatives. So what Alien, I forgot his name now, but yeah, the CM, what he suggests is the move d5. So the idea of d5 is, after queen takes d5, this is a blunder because of the move bishop c4. And after queen takes e4, there's knight to e5, 4 king squares, knight to e5, king g8, knight c4, and you're just lost there. Knight takes d5 is no better, and I probably put a mistake on the wrong move, because c4 is a good move. So knight takes d5, and after c4, you're just completely pinned. Even after something like queen a5, this is bishop d2, knight b4, a3. As you can see, black is just in a complete tangle. You'll lose a piece here back. This king is still weak, so obviously White's winning here. So instead of falling for all of these tricks, you can play the nice move king g8 here. So king g8 is always going to be played, as you can see. in these structures with the weak light squares. You'd never want to go back to e8 because of ideas of bishop d3 and bishop g6, as we've seen before. So after a random move like a3, for example, we're now threatening this line, because after bishop c4, you can either go e6 or bishop e6. I like bishop e6 because it activates the pieces quicker. We can just bring the knight to c6, bring the knight back to c7 if we need to, bring the rook across, and even like push g5, bishop g7, and this is really a nice position. So c4 is one of the moves to defend the d5 pawn, and against c4 we're going to start chipping away at the center immediately. Bishop d3 is the only move which really makes sense, just trying to castle as quickly as possible. After castle, just seems that you can push d4 here. You can bring the bring the knight to c6, put the bishop on d6, put the bishop on g4, and you're just up a full piece. I don't see any compensation, and white's approximately lost here. So c takes d5 can be played here as well. I just recommend queen takes d5. No knight to c3 can come here either. After b3, there is a trick here, obviously, to bring the bishop to c4, trying to win the queen. So bishop e6 is an important move to remember. After castle, you can just go for something like bishop f7, bring the knight to c6, rook to d8, and I just don't see any counterplay. When the rook does come to d1, you can always go queen h5 as well, swing the queen over. There's always potential for bishop d6, and some ideas against h2, especially if you can dislodge this knight on f3, which defends h2. So now let's look at bishop c4. Bishop c4 looks like it's better because white's one step closer to castling, but actually bishop c4 is worse than c4. This is because of the nice move b5. So b5 is a very nice move, because if bishop takes b5, there's no knight to defend this check. And we've seen this already once in the game with bishop f5 takes and queen a5, queen takes f5. But in this line, it's just one square instead of like 5 squares across. So something like bishop b2, queen takes b5 will be up 2 pieces. Well, it has 2 pawns, but I really don't see how this can be counted as a pawn, because it's just going to be captured very, very, very quickly, and 2 pieces are just going to outpower this position. So bishop b3 is played, by the way. There's just c4, trapping the bishop again. As you can see, there's lots of moves which try and endanger this bishop, and once you can endanger this bishop and even swap it off, black is just... white has no counterplay, and black will just completely win the position. Bishop d3 can be played, but now we can play the move queen takes d5. After bishop takes b5, because there's no queen a5 check anymore because you've moved this way, you can just trade queens, put the bishop on g4, and as you can see by the arrows, you can, when bishop c4 check is given, you always bring the king to h7. When bishop d3 check is given, you put the pawn on g6. Now you can play e5 or e6, bishop d6, knight d7, bring the rooks to the center, and this is winning again because you're up a full knight. This is a similar position as well after b5 and bishop e2, because you can just trade everything, bishop takes b5, but now you can also go bishop d7. Just seeing if white's nice enough, like maybe they're doing some charity work, they could trade off the pieces and just give you a free win. I mean, I'll take the free win, hey? But they can always go bishop c4 as well, obviously. You just play the move e6. You'll bring the knight to c6, activating the knight, bring the rook to the center, put the king on h7. Bishop d3 is always check. Bishop d3 check is played, as you know, we can always play g6. And this is winning again. I think there's one final line to look at. So after dc5, we can just trade bishop e2, knight c6, and I mean, this is just... I think this is quite obviously winning, because black is just up a full knight, and white has no compensation whatsoever, and you're just bringing every piece into the game, and it's just... this is absolutely monstrous. There's also c3 here, and after c3 I recommend the move knight c6, as I think I've said in the intro. And I think this is it for the Alien Gambit. So just before I finish the video, I just want to let you know, the idea of these videos are not to make you memorize lots of moves. I really don't recommend you to memorize all of these moves. The thing is, if you can recognize patterns in these openings, so like I told you, after bishop d3 check in that position, you go g6. After bishop c4, you put the king on h7. If you can understand patterns like this, so after knight e5 check, you always go king g8, and after bishop c4, you always push e6. You won't have to memorize the lines as just theory, right? You'll understand the ideas, and then you'll be able to apply this to any position, regardless of what white plays. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this helped, and I'll see you in the next one.